This segment is the Soccer Disruptors, and you are watching Morning Kicker. I'm Robert. He's Jason. So when the announcement that promotion and relegation was in the works, it was voted on, coming to the United States soccer sphere, it got everyone a bit excited, and kind of those soccer observers in this country that have had a idea of promotion and relegation in the back of their mind. We've had a lot of time to think about it. Some folks have been, had decades to stew on the thought of what would promotion and relegation look like in North America. And when that news came out, we got a bit of a barrage of lots of creative and varied ideas. And here on Soccer Disruptors here today, we're going to dig into a manifesto, or a plan, to be respectful, submitted by Brad in Mississippi.
Yeah, this manifesto has negative connotations, doesn't it?
We say that to be fun.
It makes it sound like you live in a cabin in the woods and you drink rubbing alcohol or something. I don't know. Okay, so this is from Brad in Mississippi, who probably wouldn't call it a manifesto. Although let me just go, he called it a suggestion in his email to us, which is very much softer. And we are we are going to give a full consideration of this suggestion. So let's start with the first part. Now he said he had some time on his hands, needed to escape from work. Here's his suggestion, making some assumptions. Assumption number one, which may never happen: MLS caves and joins all the other leagues. So in this dream scenario that Brad is putting forth, Major League Soccer is participating in the Pro Rel Pyramid. I think it's not as fun to imagine a Pro Rel Pyramid that doesn't have MLS involved, right? You kind of got to have MLS involved. He talks about concessions because teams paid $100 million plus to get into the league. And then he says all leagues could come together to make one large soccer pyramid. He's got diagram and table notes. We'll get to that. It would take a lot of time to fill all these teams up, but I think it's definitely possible with the growth of the game. 324 teams is an average of about 6 a state. This seems feasible in time. 324 teams across America. And he says just the states of Texas, California, New York, and Florida could have 80 plus teams. So obviously the bigger the state, the more teams, the more places. And after our video just this week talking about the attendance in places like Annapolis, Maryland, and McKinney, Texas, it gets you to a place of like, oh yeah, maybe this can happen. All right. Moving forward, divisions for Brad. All right, we got Premier League. You're going to use that name, Brad? You're going to go with Premier League? All right. National.
It's easy. People know it.
It's true. They would be teams in this with the ability to cover travel expenses, mostly large markets, hopefully a big TV deal. Now, he is not. What he hasn't given us is like how you're going to populate, what method you're going to use to decide what leagues these teams belong in day one.
So, okay, I think that's a fun place for a thought experiment. I've always thought a reasonable way to have the original seeding would be, and it'd be an exciting interim period, maybe like an average like points per game over the next 3 to 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, that's something like that's the way Mexico used to do relegation, right? It was a rolling average of the number of a certain number of tournaments. You could do that. I think the idea of doing like some tournament to figure it out is just daunting, and it would probably be too much. And where are you going to find space in the calendar? Now, when we talked briefly about Major League Soccer flipping their calendar, which I guess is still kind of out there as a possibility, there is this like, when do you end one season to begin the switch? Do you go from like, oh, we played our MLS Cup final in December and we're going to wait until August to start our next season? That feels like too big a gap. So maybe you use that gap to do something like this, play some sort of tournament. That's again, in a world in which MLS is involved.
And if some regular viewers will know that I kind of went a little crazy on the AI creating that gap season tournament. You look back on that, and the super spectacular tournament extravaganza is out there a month or two ago to create that. And I think that change of calendars, I feel like the natural transition would have been 2026 with the World Cup being like the buffer between the two different things, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. This is a good point, by the way. I'm imagining a calendar change. If MLS changes their calendar and they're going to be involved in a Pro Rel pyramid, or you would want them to be, then everybody else has to change the calendar too, because you can't be doing Pro Rel between leagues that are on different calendars. It doesn't work. All right, so let's keep going with Brad's suggestion. So League One, 4 regions, breaking up League One into 4 regions: Northwest, Southwest, Southeast, and Northeast. Now, when we did our video on that original Pro Rel idea from back in the 90s, before MLS got off the ground, maybe it was the 80s.
Yeah, it was like written in 88, but got publicized in the early 90s, I think.
It had this kind of thing to it. Now, he's talking about this as travel expenses consideration for that. You could create regional rivalries this way. Now, so your first division is national. Okay, got it. Big markets, New York, LA, that kind of thing. If you're League One, and if we just, as a way to imagine this, we kind of just have to go with what USL already has, right? In terms of like what, so if you were making your second division regional, that seems very early for regional, Rob, to me. Like I know it's a big country, but is that the right way to do it?
I don't think that seems like too outlandish because of the size of the country. And if there's enough density of teams, that doesn't seem outlandish. And then when I think it's, if I'm reading this correctly, there would be divisions and a playoff for a postseason. So maybe it would make that the crossovers between East and West like seem more special. So I could see that. It is a little early in the tiering to totally regionalized, but I think it's only semi-regional. So like half the country is a little bit split in the second tier. Not crazy.
Okay. I mean, again, like you're having to imagine teams being born in order to get to this level. Now, he doesn't say how many teams are each in each one. Maybe we'll get to that later because he's got a graphic that he did. So again, he calls it Premier. Oh, sorry, the Championship League. Okay, I'm there's some bolding that okay. I skipped over the Championship League. That's my fault. That's the second division, broken up into East and West, still regionalized, but East and West. And maybe this is the idea of like the East champion and the West champion get automatically promoted, and then you do a playoff for the third spot or something like that. Top 2 seeds in each division can meet in the postseason 3-game series. That's just a question mark idea. I got it. Okay, so League One is the third division. That's when you regionalize further. Again, that makes sense. This level and lower, any of the auto-promoted teams at each level could have some kind of postseason, regional or national. So again, like this is the other thing. Like we're imagining a world in which there are automatically promoted teams that are getting promoted based on the strength of their regular season, and then we also do a postseason, or we eliminate the postseason as part of our future soccer pyramid.
That's almost like an eternal question here. I mean, how far do we want to go down the world adoption? Do we want to just have it straight table or add a little bit of the spice of the playoffs? Well,
yeah, I mean,
that's a huge question mark.
Yeah, crowning your champion to the playoffs is a very American thing. I know a lot of soccer fans don't love that because it's not traditional in the game, at least in a lot of places. But again, I feel like you need to find out a way to kind of marry ideas, and you can't just toss out all the sort of Americanized elements of our leagues. I think some of them are beneficial to selling the league and getting people excited and all that stuff.
Side note, I did see a news piece that there's possible lawsuit in England, the National League, to go from the 5th to the 4th. The second place team that had like 18 more points than the team they lost to in the playoffs is, I think, suing the court of like competitive sport or whatever to try to eliminate the playoff promotion system.
Court of arbitration for sport.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have a gap that big, it does feel unfair. But again, yeah. And this is the thing. This is what I talk about. Like people say, oh, playoffs are a terrible way to crown a champion. I guess part of that is in like a Major League Soccer context, we don't value the supporter shield enough. And yeah, we should probably do that. They are measuring 2 different abilities, right? Obviously the 34 game regular season is a measurement of one kind of way of being successful, and playoffs is just a kind of a different skill set. It's why like the World Cup is not the World Cup without playoffs. It's what they are. It's elimination, single elimination. That excitement builds from that. And shout out to Nicholas Murray, who does say playoffs are important for broadcast reasons in this country. All right, so League Two, which is now down to the 4th tier, more regional, create regional rivalries. He says under League Two, the ability to have amateur or hyperlocal leagues is still possible. Those could feed into League Two as well. Now, obviously, the question is, when do you have to professionalize? Right? If you're an amateur team and you win your league and you you connect it to the pyramid, when is that level of like, okay, we're not promoting anybody from League 4 or League 3 because they don't want to professionalize. And, probably you don't need to worry about that too much. All right, let's move on. So here's the playoff. He's got a playoff structure. Higher seeds have home field advantage. One game, of course, higher seed would host. And a 2-leg, maybe the higher seed picks which game they want at home. Okay, these are all the question marks, working it out. It's sort of like, what we've seen in the Champions League historically. He's got 3-game series. In the higher division, if you win a playoff series, you stay up. In the lower division, you lose a playoff series, you stay down. All right.
Seems
so
reasonable.
We can make a playoffs that is about the promotion and relegation. I mean, does it undercut the regular season too much if you have all of your promoted teams coming out of the playoffs?
Yeah, I would say so. There has to be some sort of reward for finishing absolute first. I mean, that would be.
But what if it's buys? What if you finish first overall in the combined or the first in the league, you get a bye to the playoff final. So you have your opportunity to win your way up with that one game. Now you're waiting around for everybody else. That is a problem. All right, I'm talking myself into a corner. I don't want to do that. He's got the playoffs and Pro Rel here, the Premier and Championship levels. Premier League playoffs will give us 6 to 9 games. Less teams making it more difficult, more meaningful to get there. So 20% of teams. He says, obviously, TV deals, they want more playoffs. He thinks that's a bad idea. If teams 5 through 16 wanted to play some kind of optional secondary tournament, go for it, like an NIT in college. Now, I do think that, again, from a marketing and broadcasting perspective, you don't want that tournament happening at the same time as your main tournament, because then you're drawing attention away. And those fans whose teams didn't qualify for the playoffs to go up, you want them watching your games that are happening to earn promotion, whether they have an rooting interest or not. Maybe they're rooting against a rival going up. Maybe they're just interested because you want to build that. I mean, I watch the championship playoff games because even if I don't care about, Sheffield United or whatever, I want to see Sunderland. I want to see that drama of that. So you have to build that drama here. And I do think playoffs, something is added to playoffs if promotion is on the line, Robert.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw a celebration. I think it was Elche in Spain, their promotion celebration. Wow, that was unreal. Smaller town in Spain, packed shoulder to shoulder. Everyone just had the biggest smile, bright eyes on their face, and it was that lifts the psyche when you see that many people collectively happy. Well, and promotion is a thing that brings it out in people.
Yeah, I mean, I love
that.
That's the knock-on effect of being promoted. I'm just saying, like, from a drama perspective on the day, we got a game here. This is a game that will not only crown a champion of our second or third division in American soccer, but the winner is going up. Like,
that's a lot of stakes. People like stakes, and what I'm saying. If you lose that game, your team might have bankrupted themselves trying to get promoted, and then if you win that game, you are going into a league that will give you more riches than you thought possible. That's a lot of weight on that game, a lot of stakes.
All right, let's see. We're gonna wrap this up. This is other notes from Brad. All leagues will play a balanced schedule. That's necessary, I think. You got to figure that out. It's permutations. As teams get promoted or relegated, they go into the division that makes the most geographical sense. Now, obviously, you might have to move teams from regions. That's the thing. Like, when you regionalize at those levels, and now a team that was in one region goes up, you got to fill that gap. Maybe the team coming up doesn't fit in that region. Are you moving a team just because they're slightly a better fit geographically from one region to another? It's like switching conferences. Like, I think Sporting Kansas City, Nashville, Houston, and Major League Soccer have switched conferences a number of times, and it kind of makes your head spin as a fan because you don't know who. I mean, in a balanced schedule, maybe it's not an issue, but again, you're regionalized, so now you're not playing in the same teams the next year. Putting multiple clubs all over the country, making it easier for kids to find the game. Obviously, there's that. This format gives plenty of movement up and down, ton of postseason games. And then he's just being, he's just dreaming a bit. USA 2046 World Cup champions. Now, he also did a graphic. This is a little tough to read on our screen here. And it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but he does have it broken out. So 20 premier teams, 24 teams in the west of the championship, 24 teams in the east of the championship. He's got 1 auto promoted and then 2 playoffs from those leagues, and then two auto relegated and then 2 playoffs. So you're doing 4 promotions instead of 3 because you're regionalizing that championship level, East and West. What do you make? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What's your vibe here on Brad's idea, Rob, before we move on?
I think it's the generally the way that makes sense. I think starting regional, and devil's in the details. There's a lot of things that, with every action, there's a reaction. If you do something in good intent, there's always going to be some sort of a side effect that you didn't think about. But I do think that it all the nuts and bolts of Brad's plan does make sense. You have a big underbelly of regional amateur clubs. They have a pathway to becoming a professional one in a more regional league that doesn't seem like it's too big a jump. Like you're not going from playing in a high school stadium to, you're playing against fully professional sides. So it seems like there's a gradual pyramid and ladder up, and it makes sense. It's actually a pyramid. It starts wide and points up to one thing. Having all teams and soccer people in one country working towards the same goal, I think ultimately is more powerful than we can imagine, because one thing about this country, it's very fractured. Not everyone's working in the same direction. Not all the talented players are all in the same place. And this, these arrows on this diagram that he labored to make for us, it starts wide and, points to the top, which ultimately seems the logical end.
There are some things we can pick apart here. I see in the chat is kind of noticing some things that may be a little off. Give Brad credit for putting some work into it. Okay, maybe it's not completely refined, but I appreciate the effort. I'll say what this reminds me of is college sports. I mean, it's not college sports doesn't have promotion relegation, obviously, but in terms of the breadth of this, like the reach, when you're down in the 3rd division of American soccer, Brad's got 96 teams. And at first my brain's like, what? That's insane. 96 teams in the 3rd division, and you've got 4 different regions and all this. But of course, it's a massive country. And why should we lock out some teams simply because, well, we've already got 24 teams in the 3rd division. We don't have room for you. Maybe you do it a different way. Maybe it's regionalized, because just like college sports, there are so many teams. You've got to find a way to organize them. So shout out to Brad. It's a first one of these we've done. He put in the effort, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you to the MK Ultras, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in today. And if you are watching this and you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. I think we crashed through the 2,400 number overnight of subscribers, so thank you to everyone who hit subscribe already. If you want to take it up a notch, $3.99, become a member of Morning Kick-Around's channel, become an MK Ultra, and help us, help this grow. And shout out at the top of the hour, we talked about our first ever MK Ultra of the week, Alex Merch. He gifted 20 memberships out, so we saw a bit of a boon there. Thank you again to our first ever MK Ultra of the week, Alex Merch. You can follow suit, be like Alex, get a membership, and then if you're a member, you can buy stickers, you can send thank yous, you can join the Discord server. Lots of great conversations going over there. You can also support us on coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can make up your own donation amount there. You're not set into the $3.99 or anything like that, so you can make up your own donation over there at Ko-Fi for coffee if you want. We're also a podcast. Look up Morning Kick-Around on your favorite podcast platform. And note, Spotify has our video up there with that podcast as well.